Commission meeting of November 16th, 2020. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Wayne, would you please take roll?
Yes, sir. Okay. Mrs. Grabanowski.
Present.
Who's that for?
Josh, Mr. Fedor, are you there?
Present.
Excellent. Mr. Lewis.
Present.
Mr. Jones.
Present.
Miss Walker.
Present.
Mr. Papa.
Present.
Did you call my name? I'm present too.
Yeah, that's right. And Mr. Franz.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, so we got a little lag. All right, so we have a 7 people vote for any matter, take 4 votes. In your packet was a set of minutes from the October meeting. I noticed there was a couple blanks in there on page 2 where it says Rich Meyer. That should be the Fritz Minor plat. On page 5, I believe it was first class mail for legal notice in the space for legal. And then on page 7, minor plat approval for the approval of, and the minor plat for the approval of 2 lots. Those fill in those blanks if you didn't have those. Is there any other comments? Changes?
Jeff Papa pointed out that there might be some comments on pages 6 and 7 that could have been attributed to him or me. I don't have any concern with who they got responded to or attributed to. They both generally, I think, move the conversation forward and they're fine.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes as corrected by Dave.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries. Dan, we've got these on each one of these items. They've all used first class mail for legal notice. Can we do a motion for all 4 of those at once to accept first class mail?
Yes, you may.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve the use of first class mail for legal notice of public hearing for docket items 2020-47Z, docket 2020-43DD, docket 2020-44DP, and docket 2020-45-DPA.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed by nay. Okay, motion carries. On the agenda, first item up is under new business 2020-47Z, Appaloosa Crossing, Outlots I and J, 10901 East 300 South and 3201 South US 421. Petition for a zone map change to rezone 1.5 plus or minus acres identified as Outlot I within the proposed secondary plat of Appaloosa Crossing from the Rural Business Professional Business District PB to the Rural General Business District GB, and to rezone 1.17 plus minus acres identified as Outlot J within the proposed secondary plat of Appaloosa Crossing from the Rural General Business District GB to the Rural Professional District PB. What I was thinking, we would handle this one first and then do the 2 development plans, read those together and just deal with both of those together, if that's fine with everybody.
That sounds fine,
Yeah.
Mr. We do want to create a moment here to ask any of our audience attendees to, if they desire to have their name read into the record, this would be a good time to handle that. Roger, do you see any hands raised? Give people a moment here.
You'd think I'd remember that by now, Wayne.
We are having a few hands raised. I'll wait just a moment or two more. Hands raised. We have Rick Green Sr., Adam D'Angelo, Allison Bash, William Culpepper, Jared and Mary Lehman, and Debbie Greco. Thank you. And Maria Fennell.
All right, thanks. Petitioner present, ready to make a presentation?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the commission, my name is Matt Price. I'm an attorney at Denton's in Indianapolis, Indiana, with an address of 10 West Market Street. It's very good to see everyone this evening. I'm here tonight on behalf of Harris FLP and Bob Harris, and I've got two colleagues with me to answer questions about each one of our pending petitions. Those are Greg Snelling, who is our civil engineer, and Rick Green, who you heard raise his hand to be acknowledged, who's with Axis Architects. If I may ask the host, I'd like to just share my screen briefly with regard to a PowerPoint I have that explains, can take this first matter up very quickly, and then we can move to the development plans.
Hey, Roger, do you have that? Can you make that switch for us, please?
And if not, it provides as well.
Is there an icon at the bottom of your screen? Take your space bar across or your mouse across and find the green highlighted share screen.
Yes.
Okay, let's go with that.
You see that okay?
Yep.
Thank you for that. I've got each one of these presentations in a very short PowerPoint, but the first petition, as was noted, is the 2020 47-Z, which has been called corrective rezoning, and I think that is the correct terminology for what we're trying to accomplish here this evening. You may recall that back at the little over a year ago in 2019, we rezoned what you can see on the slide as Outlot I, the first outlot south of Hanoverian Drive in the development, to GB to permit a liquor store use. That was approved by the council back in November of 2019. When we made application and actually had a TAC meeting relative to Outlot J, which is the office building, which is the second petition here this evening, it was discovered that the legal description for Outlot I actually misdescribed or described the property further south, effectively rezoning Outlot J to GB, at least according to the legal description. And so I think we've been working very closely with staff and believe that the clear intent from all the materials submitted in support of the rezoning were was to rezone outlot I and not outlot J. And so this would just return the rezoning to what was actually reflected in the documents, but for the scrivener's error in the legal description that was used, which described the property a little further south. And so the result of this rezoning would be to make outlot I GB and to restore outlot J to its PB designation.
Okay. Are there any members of the public have any comments on this? Are you getting any raised hands, Roger? You're on mute.
I have to stop the sharing for a moment so I can see if any hands are raised. There are no hands raised.
All right, Wayne, can I have staff report, please?
Certainly, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed. As indicated by petitioner, this matter is in essence works to clean up a minor issue in legal description and certainly moves the lot line in a manner that facilitates the project as it was originally intended. Again, staff is supportive of the rezoning as it's been filed. Happy to answer any questions and would note that action tonight by the Plan Commission would be heard at the Town Council's next available meeting.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'll open it up for any questions from any of the members of the Plan Commission.
I got a quick question. You've also got a plan put together for outlot J. But you're saying you're moving that back to being professional business, correct?
That's correct.
But it looks more like a retail establishment. So what's the intent for the use of that building?
It's a professional office building. It's the first user is a dentist office.
And then the other two uses are also going to be office?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? If there are none, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right.
I move that docket number 2020-47-Z to 1, rezone 1.5 plus or minus acres identified as outlot I within the proposed secondary plat of Appaloosa Crossing from the Rural Professional Business District, PB, to the Rural General Business District, GB, and 2, rezone 1.17 plus or minus acres identified as outlot J within the proposed secondary plat of Appaloosa Crossing from the Rural General Business District, GB, to the Rural Professional Business District, PB. Receive a favorable recommendation based upon the findings in the staff report as presented, with this recommendation being certified to the Town Council for adoption or rejection.
Is there a second? Who seconded it?
Papa.
Thanks. Any further discussion? If there are none, Wayne, can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
He's muted.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye. I'm sorry.
Ms. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Papa,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. France.
Aye, so most, we'll send that forward to the Town Council with a favorable recommendation. And then on to the next two matters, which we'll just deal with on a combined basis. So the next two items are Docket number 2020-43DP, Appaloosa Crossing Outlot J, multi-tenant building, 3295 South US 421. And 2020-44DP, Appaloosa Crossing Master Signage Program, 3295 South US 421. 43 is a petition for development plan approval of a 10,800 square foot plus or minus multi-tenant building on Outlot J, 1.17 plus or minus acres within the Appaloosa Crossing Development, zoned rural professional business, and within the Michigan Road Overlay, MRO. And 44 DP, petition for development plan approval of a master signage program for the Appaloosa Crossing Commercial Development, zoned rural professional business, PB, and rural general business, GB, and within the Michigan Road Overlay, MRO. Mr. Price, please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I believe we are sharing my screen again, and I'm showing the site plan for Outlot J, which is the outlot that will be returned following council approval to the professional business designation. As I mentioned, this is an office building. Our first tenant is a dentist user. Want to point out just a couple of aspects of how the property will be accessed. Be accessed off of the internal street running on the east side of the property. Michigan Road is to the top of the drawing, and so it will not have direct access onto 421, be connected for internal circulation with Outlot I to the north. This may hopefully look familiar to you as far as the proposed architecture for the building. You may recall that back in April, we received approval for the multi-tenant retail shops located further north, immediately south of kind of the corner piece. And we hearkened to the architectural design that borrowed from some of the history associated with the property. Mr. Harris's family has owned the real estate for many years. At one point had a white barn on the property, and Bob's vision for the development is to continue to incorporate that architectural style, kind of a modern interpretation of some historical barns. And so we've chosen the exact same color palette, building materials, and architectural design as was done with the shops, and previously approved back in April, as I mentioned. The dentist office tenant will be, as I mentioned, is our first user, and they'll be located in the space where you see the gabled roof, borrowing from the same architectural design elements that were done for the shops. I would like to note a couple of things that are called out in the staff report, just to address them up front, which is with regard to our landscaping plan for our parking area. It was noted that we needed to add some shade tree species. We looked back at our plan, and we understand that requirement and have no problem complying with it. I think there was some difference in terminology between the type of trees we were proposing, whether they constituted shade trees or not. We have no trouble or problem making that adjustment to the planning schedule for the landscaping plan, and we'll do so, and are agreeable to a condition on the development plan approval that would require that to be done as an element of the approval. And then picking up on the next development plan, we had submitted a master signage plan for the property, and included both a representation of what a multi-tenant monument sign would look like, as well as a single tenant monument sign, together with the proposed landscaping treatments. at the base of each one of those signs. And then we show the anticipated location for each one of those signs. And as highlighted in the staff report, the original rezoning for this property, which dates back some time, included a delineation of a master signage plan and also limitations on that signage. We've worked with staff to come up with this proposal, which we believe is compliant with both the overlay zone as well as our zoning commitments for the site. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you, Matt. At this point, is there anybody in the public who'd like to make a comment on this matter?
We do have, at this time, hands raised.
All right,
First one is Lisa Antonacci. So she will be able to speak.
Lisa, you are muted. Please state your name and address.
Hi, Lisa Antonacci, 3220 Automash Drive.
Okay, please proceed. Thanks.
Yeah, we had a question for the last issue. Just want to confirm where that liquor store exactly is going to be.
So if I may,
Yeah,
Mr.
go
President,
ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
Mrs. Antonacci, so that is the outlot I, which is the first outlot immediately south of the first access drive off of Michigan Road. So it's the lot immediately south of that drive on the, if you will, the southwest portion of the property.
Okay, so the last outlet is going to be the dentist office and the liquor store will be next to the dentist office?
Yes, so the outlot immediately south of the proposed liquor store is where the dentist office would be located. And then immediately south of that is another outlot that is outlot K.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Roger, would you please recognize the next person?
Yes, the next is William Culpepper. Oops, excuse me.
If you want to take Adam now, that's
Yeah.
fine. We'll get back to Mr. Culpepper. Or you got both of them up now, so. Mr. Culpepper, you're on, so let's go ahead with you first, please. Mr. Culpepper? If you can hear me, Mr. Culpepper, you might, if you would probably, you might, okay, there he is. All right. We can see you now. Can't hear you. Still can't hear you. The one thing you can do is in the, there's a chat feature. Can you hear us? There's a chat feature in this. If you click on the chat, you can type your comments and we can see them there, if you can hear me. I mean, if you can hear us, you might want to try to log off and then log back in and see if that makes a difference. All right, why don't you take D'Angelo and we'll see if Mr. Culpepper can get back on.
Mr. D'Angelo did not have his hand raised for this case.
Oh, okay. All right. So is there anybody else with their hand raised?
Not at this time.
All right. If Mr. Culpepper rejoins us, we'll jump him back in. At this point, Wayne, staff report, please.
Yes, thank you. I did just send a message to Mr. Culpepper in the chat with a phone number he could also dial here. The two matters as covered, staff is supportive of those matters as they have been filed and certainly as commented on by the staff. Certainly glad and certainly appreciate the petitioner providing additional clarification on a few of the comments that we had. Certainly the architectural waiver is something that we look to have addressed. This board recalls, and certainly actions of the BZA speak to this, that the theming of this center is a high priority topic, and certainly the waivers themselves, as long as they're adhering to that very similar theme, that's something that's being paid attention to. And certainly, as Mr. Price indicated, the buildings themselves are calling out to other facilities that have been approved or considered previously. As proposed, the signage package is in conformance with the written commitments as associated with this project. The uses as described are supportable, and I'd be happy to answer any questions related to these matters.
All right. Thank you, Wayne. At this point in time, I'll open it up to members of the Plan Commission for any questions.
As usual, we discussed this earlier. Are these signs internally lit or externally lit?
They're internally illuminated.
So is Appaloosa Crossing lit as well as the tenant names? And then the lower one, the single family tenant, how are those? Is each letter lit?
That's a good question, Mr. Jones. I do not know the answer to that. I think our representative of Axis may know the answer to that question. If I could defer to Mr. Green.
The intent is for each individual letter to be back illuminated with that.
Would you please state your name and address, please?
My name is Rick Green, Senior, 618 East Market Street, Indianapolis.
All right, thank you.
Rick, could you say that again?
Yeah, the intention for each individual letter to be back illuminated with that.
Okay, so on the multi-tenant sign, everything you have listed as tenant would be a plastic panel with their logo on it and then backlit. Is that what I'm understanding?
That is correct.
Then Appaloosa Crossing across the top would be lit how?
That's also internally lit with a white light. You'll just see the words Appaloosa Crossing at the top.
So they're just basically cut into whatever panels up there.
That is correct.
Is that the same thing that goes on with the tenant signs down below?
That is correct.
So then how do we address that, like on lot, what is that? H, you've got, it appears two signs. You've got the multi-tenant and the tenant. And then will the individual tenants have any signage? You've shown no signage on any of the facades of any of the buildings you've proposed. Well, you did on the first multi-tenant one, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
But the one you're currently proposing has no signage on it. So the buildings themselves will have no signage.
that is correct.
Is that correct, Matt?
Correct.
And the
And
liquor store will have no signage on it?
I'm sorry, I talked over the top of you there.
What?
I think I may have spoken while you were asking the question. I apologize. I wanted to make sure I understood you correctly.
Okay. So the signage that we are seeing is the only signage for the development. There will be no signage on the individual buildings.
I do not believe we can say that. This plan is just for the monument signage. To the extent there's any walls.
Right, but you package
That would be
this
a permitted
request
sign.
with the request for the architectural waivers for the building, so it's one. Am I understanding what we're doing?
That's correct.
Which is correct, that the buildings will have no signage on them?
I cannot commit or say that the buildings will have no signage on them. No.
And we don't really know what we're approving from a signage standpoint.
I would hope that the businesses would be able to have some kind of sign. I wouldn't want to take my kid to thinking I'm taking him to the dentist and I go into the liquor store. I mean, you kind of have to.
That's kind of what happens when you establish kind of a comprehensive signage package for development. It should call all that out. And currently we are seeing buildings with no signage.
Yes.
Wayne, I have a question. Do we typically allow monument signage as well as building signage?
Correct. That is something that's routinely supported throughout Zionsville, both urban and rural.
What happens when they propose projects without it?
The signage package is a commitment topic that's being discussed. The individual buildings, as long as the individual tenants conform to the zoning standards, the staff would be compelled to approve those sign permit requests.
I'm just going off the basis. City of Indianapolis, I had to put together a master signage plan for a half-mile long building. They can be kind of picky, and once you're committed to it, you're committed to it. But I pass it along in the leases to all my tenants, all 150 of them. So I kind of expect that we would have the same level of comprehensive planning for something like this. Because don't we usually have some rulings about whether signs are internally lit or externally lit?
Yeah, all different types of in the zoning ordinance. In the rural district, those standards are more lenient than in your urban area.
Yeah.
And as I recall for the shops, I do not believe that we showed signage. I know we did not, in the sense that we did not know who the tenants would be to provide an actual depiction of what the signs would look like. And so when, for example, we did South Village, we came through with individual sign packages as we knew what those signs looked like and their specific design, et cetera.
So if we take a look at the engineering A201 and Exhibit 4, the elevations, which by earlier conversation, I think, Larry pointed out, these are probably reversed. You've got the east elevation as what would appear to be the front of the building. We're assuming that's going to be facing Michigan. If there was signage, I mean, where would that end up being? Would it be on the windows? Would it be, above? I mean, any idea where that's going to end up?
Well,
I'm
go ahead,
sorry,
Rick.
Matt, I'll go ahead and answer that if you don't mind. If
Yeah.
building signage is planned by individual tenants, it will be on that ephes band, which is the dark band above the awning.
Okay.
And I think with the previous building, we discussed that once you're in the parking spaces, it kind of goes away. So you have to do both. You have to do glass and above. Not that people forget, but people forget. Sorry, but that's people.
All right.
So does that mean it would also be on the stone over the barn, so to speak?
Depending upon what the dentist would want, it's possible that some of that signage would be contained over that stone. That's correct.
And those would be internally lit
Yes.
words or letters or whatever as well.
Yes.
Anybody else have questions, comments?
Last question, would there be signage on the north and south facades as well?
No.
And then Matt, the tenant signage, where does that actually go out in the yards, is that going to end up in these little kind of cut out lawn areas, either in the center or on the corners, or what are we? None of the landscape plans you show any kind of signage locations other than the several plans we've been given. And those are kind of general.
Rick, can you describe exactly where those will go as well?
If you could roll back to your overall site plan, Matt.
Yes. Sorry. Is that the right one for you, Rick?
Yeah, that's correct. The tenant signs, the multi-tenant sign would more than likely be in this particular building in the center parking lot space divider, if you will, that fronts Michigan Road.
But I'm thinking on the overall plan, you're not asking for a multi-tenant sign there. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, you are correct, because this will be a medical office building. Yeah, so your single tenant signage would be in that location, though.
So a single tenant sign only has a single tenant on it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So where do the multi-tenant signs go then?
So if you look at, here, let me see. So the M1 designation is along 146th Street is the sign kind of in the midpoint there to the west of the main entrance off 146th at the south end of our shops location. And then we show another one on the outlot north of the Hanoverian Drive access.
In essence, the multi-tenant signs will be at the entrance locations to those outlot areas from Michigan Road and then 146th Street.
So basically, the multiple tenant, professional business tenants we're having, a liquor store in this building on the south end, while currently we're showing the proposed 4 businesses, we only have room for 3 signs.
On the lot in question, there will be 1 single tenant sign. There'll be 1 single tenant sign to the lot south of that. And the liquor store will only have 1 single tenant sign. Across the entrance is where we would have the multiple tenant entrance sign.
I guess my concern is if I was a tenant in the lot, what is that, lot J, I'd want my name on a sign. It's a professional business use, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And if I had the same discussion leading up to this evening's hearing myself and discussed it with my client. And if we need to move that multi-tenant sign that's located on the lot immediately north of Hanoverian down to our professional business office building lot, we're prepared to make that change this evening. I think that's Larry.
So whatever happens to the businesses behind all this? I mean, it's supposed to be a mixed-use development behind it, but still mixed use means there'll be some commercial uses. How do they get signed?
In this area in here? In the part of the development?
Correct.
Yeah. Right now, the plan is, and it's contemplated to be filed either next month, December, or the following month, that area would be entirely residential. So there's currently no contemplation of any signage in the behind any of these buildings. And that's the senior housing, single family detached senior housing project that we've talked about from time to time.
So I'm trying to figure out which lot that is. If we go to the, I gotta find it. It's easier when you have paper. I have to scroll through everything now.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the buildings that we approved or yeah, so it would be between outlot A and F, facing Michigan. Right now, you've got a multi-tenant sign there, but then no single tenant signs in front of those buildings. So is that the intent? And then each one of these down here, single tenant, multi-tenant, I guess, that's a break from what every other one appears to have.
Well, I get what you're saying, and the change that I had discussed with my client, and I think that Larry was mentioning was relocating the multi-tenant sign on outlot H down to the multi-tenant office building on outlot J.
No, I'm looking up north of that. I'm right south of the corner. You've got the 2 buildings there.
Yes.
And there's just one multi-tenant it's just all the other ones. Is that how it's going to end up? There's going to be no single tenant signs in that situation. So if there's like 6 or 7 tenants, it'll just be one signage and one sign on that plus whatever's on the buildings.
Yes, and we're only permitted by the commitments to have that number of total signs.
Oh, okay.
Including multi-tenant signs.
All right. is there any possibility you're gonna reduce the number of signs? I'm just kind of curious. And just go with multi-tenant and signage on the buildings?
I'm not in a position to make that change this evening.
Oh, I'm just curious. I mean, I'm just, I was just wondering how that's gonna end up. I mean, I guess the signage I'm looking at, it just kind of looks, it just kind of looks odd. I don't know. It's, it's not, I mean, it's not consistent is how I would look at it.
You mean the location of the signage around the development?
Yeah, the placement,
Placement.
different buildings. I mean, it's less is more thing maybe. So I don't know.
Also, one of the benefits of, operating from home is that the 4-foot stack of Zionsville Plan Commission and BZA dockets, meetings, notes, I can actually go get. So I went back and I'm looking at the building that's up there at 146, the multi-shop one we previously approved. And it's nice to see that one actually had the full, I'm talking about the architectural building, had the full roofs on the ends and actually show kind of a true board and batten kind of detail on them with the stone. They also then individually at each tenant suite made allowances for signage on the building over the front of them. Now the plan also doesn't show any kind of signage along Michigan Road. I guess my two questions are, why did we go away from some of the architectural details on those with this building, i.e. the full roof and a true kind of board and batten detail and a little bit of awning? And if the intent is to have signage for each tenant space, well then put it on the plan.
Rick, can you take that? Then I can comment as well.
We took the same building elements, or other words, the materials that we did for what I'm going to call the B shops that's at the northwest corner of the development, and to emulate the Lot J building or the dentist building, medical office building. The building footprint does not allow us to do the full roof like we've done in the B shops. It's just the layout of this lot that made sense, that the north side of that building would be more of a 2-story structure, and then the remaining part of that would emulate the B shop or the smaller anchor stores, if you will, that were associated with the building on the northwest side of the property.
Where's the footprint have anything to do with the roof?
To emulate the architectural style, the footprint means everything.
Yeah, but structurally, you've got the same considerations with the roof on the building on the multi-unit with support in the back edge of the roof, and you're still going to have to do it here to a point. I'm kind of struggling.
Well,
I'm struggling to buy what you're saying is a polite way of saying it, or what I mean.
if I have a gable roof across the entire area of that, it'll be difficult to locate rooftop equipment and everything else. I do need a flat area that's got some sort of a parapet on that to hide equipment. This particular layout allows me to do that.
You do know I'm looking at the first floor construction plan for the building up north. And if what you're saying is correct, you're gonna have the same issue. You're gonna have the issue up there.
Well, we do have flat areas up there to hide the equipment.
Right, but they're adjoining some of your tenant bays, which means you're putting equipment for one tenant over the roof of another. I'm just looking at your drawings. And my concern is with this building, some of the detail that we previously approved, which you got variance for architecturally, they're getting downgraded on this one. And if you're going to be consistent, be consistent. And Matt, you've heard this out of me every single time. The water features have gotten turned into retainage ponds. You know, we're gonna have some signage. Let's get some consistency between the streetscape and what we're doing on the building. I understand what I'm saying, and I understand how it gets heard, and there's with intent. Like, come on, we're gonna do this.
I got a question.
I'd like to ask for a continuance and go get some of this stuff resolved. I'm mute.
No, I'm thinking.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I would ask this. Certainly, I'm hearing some definite feedback on the sign plan, and I'm certainly willing to go back and discuss that with my client. I do feel like we've worked with the staff with regard to the architectural treatments for this building, and believe that we had achieved both thematically and with regard to the building materials, a good match with the original building, particularly given the office use for it. And would prefer to go forward if possible. Certainly if it's the Plan Commission's desire that we continue that, we can do that as well. But we've worked very hard to get to this point, and had not and had believed that we had struck a good balance for this building with regard to what we had proposed, and matching it very closely with the original shop submittal.
Let me ask a question relative to the signage.
Yes.
You know, you've got the plan here, and this is kind of Dwayne and I guess the Plan Commission in general. If there is a change to the signage that's approved here, how would we view this? Would that be something that, would be something that the planning department could handle, or is that something that the Plan Commission would want to come back in front of the commission? Because I'm looking at this and it sounds like you guys are still kind of bouncing around where these signs may end up on the property. And I just want to understand, if that does change, how we think about that relative to coming back to the Plan Commission, or does that something that we would trust Wayne to handle?
Well, and your zoning ordinance speaks to major and minor amendments.
Right.
And this group has heard those from time to time where the staff has approved a minor amendment and brought that to you all. And many times that conversation has been very smooth. There have been a few cases where the board has said, now, wait a minute, that's not exactly our intention. So that's certainly items that we are cognizant of. So so your answer is you do have the minor amendment process that would address changes that happen, potential changes that happen in the future.
And I appreciate that. I guess I'm trying to figure out, does the Plan Commission feel that this is a minor amendment, or is this a major amendment? I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
We're talking about the signage plan being a minor or major.
If they've got the plan here, if they change it, is that something that we would consider minor and trust Wayne to handle? Or is that something that you'd want to have come back to the plan commission to be dealt with?
Well, the question is, as long as they're confident, as long as the developer is confident that he's going to accept limiting himself to these type of signs in these locations. But that's my point. It's like, well, if he's going to have some multi-tenant users on the lot J, well, then I'm thinking they'd want a multi-tenant sign. But then the other question is, you know, are you going to have signage on the building? And I've scrolled back through the architectural plans, and the floor plan shows a larger tenant space on the north end, and then a medium size and a smaller as it progresses south. Which one kind of defeats the comment that was made about the gable roof not being taken all the way to the back, because you still got flat roof area to hide all sorts of mechanicals. And two, you know, with the previous drawing that we approved for the other building, there was more architectural detail provided on it, whether it was awnings over the large windows or the board and batten detail, as well as it showed where they were going to have signage. A little more complete idea. And that's, once again, all I'm asking is come to us with kind of a complete plan you're willing to commit to. And we keep getting pieces and then keep getting variances. You know. And with this latest building elevation we're being asked to approve, it's actually, you know, it's got less detail than the previous one we approved. And if there's going to be continuity in design in the development, then keep them equal. Guys, whatever, it's just me.
And we've maintained the exact building materials, the same color palette. It's an office building, so our focus was certainly not on wall signage. You see additional signage with regard to the retail users. You asked me to, I would say there would be no additional signage, and I couldn't make that commitment, but certainly not our intent. And what I am prepared to do, though, is to agree to relocate the multi-tenant sign to that parcel for the points you've raised, and the same way I've discussed with my client. I think that makes sense.
So are we putting a 12-foot tall sign out in front of this building?
It'd be up. Yes.
I mean, when we did the stuff for Stonegate, that was the big concern, is about massive signage out in front of that development. And at least there we had, what, St. Vincent Hospital going in and doing something and some other stuff. And did that come for the Plan Commission, or was that a BZA?
BZA.
Was it a BZA issue?
I believe so.
Correct.
Mr. Price, just for the sake of clarity, when you said that you would be willing to relocate the monument sign, just for the sake of clarity, could you say from where to where on the record so we capture
Yes.
that?
Yes, thank you, Council. It's from the location shown on Outlot H to and in lieu of the single tenant sign on Outlot J.
And Matt, with that, you're moving the naming of the subdivision, the naming of the development, Appaloosa Crossing down there, and away from your entries.
Understand.
You
This
want to take some time and
subject
sort
of
this
some
out.
internal discussion.
Is it possible for us to separate these out again?
Well, there are two issues. They're two separate matters.
Exactly. So could we have them go back and look at the signs, but go ahead and approve the basic architectural plan
Well, I mean,
or disapprove it?
well, entertain a motion on 43 and have a continuance on, request a continuance on 44. Yeah, that's a distinct possibility.
Again, my concern with the architecture is it's not the same package of architecture that we previously approved. It also doesn't address the signage on the building. It's not complete.
Larry, I don't have the previous item.
Architecture.
So is that, you're saying that the picture, I mean, the drawings and materials provided was a lot greater detail than the
Correct.
elevation
The core pieces on the previous multi-tenant building we approved, the gable roof detail goes from front to back, would be number one. Number two is, while they call out in their verbal description of this project, the previous elevations and details did truly show kind of a board and batten detail done with what I'm assuming would be the hardy board siding.
Larry, Roger, can you let Larry share his screen if he's got those documents there?
No, it'd be here.
Or is that, oh, you've got it's on paper. Never mind. Never mind.
Is this going to work? Good Lord. This is bad. This is all right. But my concerns is, all right, when we look at the elevations, what's not happening on this building that we're approving is that kind of full roof detail, which really does have a substantial impact if you're actually describing the creation of a barn type structure. We also had the signage over each of the tenant bays. Regarding Mr. Green's concern about no room for mechanicals, the one they're proposing has a larger unit that'll still benefit from some flat roof area up there. Anyways, my general concern is when you look through the drawings we previously approved, they had a lot more detail architectural interest than what we're getting ready to approve, and that is a concern.
Okay.
If this is approved as shown, would they not be allowed to put signs on the individual buildings over each tenant space?
The zoning ordinance supports that type of installation.
It what?
Yes, they would be allowed to install those. That's supported, as you described it, that is something that is supported by the zoning ordinance.
Okay, so even though it doesn't show any signs on the rendering, they would still be allowed to put the signs up there as long as they complied with whatever other requirements there were written in the zoning ordinance.
Correct.
Okay.
Matt, on the buildings, is this building going to be exactly the same as the previous buildings, or going to be substantially the same? In materials and finish, appearance. I think that's what Larry's getting to, we can't tell.
Yeah. Or what we're being provided isn't, it's the same, it's emulating.
Yeah, and I could certainly have to amplify on this, but my understanding in discussing this with the architects is that it is the same with regard to the building materials, the accents and features of the development. Certainly, when Larry held up that picture and when you look at this picture, there may be some differences between those two as far as what they, their overall appearance, but the same architectural features that were, the use of the columns, the awning, the gabled roof, the limestone base materials, the ephes, as I've said, the color palette, all of those are exactly the same. And the idea was to match them exactly, which I think is a different issue than whether our representations are exactly the same as the way the material was represented. And Rick, could you?
If the question is whether we're going to provide a board and batten gable front facade like we did on the B shops, the intent is that will be the same detail. It's a hardy plank. Okay, we don't have some line work shown on the elevation, but we will provide the board and batten type siding that matches what you previously approved with the B shops. If we're asking for the roof line to continue front to back, I can't make that commitment this evening due to the inherent cost that would be associated with extending that roof front to back. That would be something that Mr. Price and I would have to talk to our client with to see if they would be willing to commit to that.
I understand.
The other, the other thing that comes into play with that is with the development of the lot to the north, we're not going to be seeing much of that roof line on that particular edge of the building.
But hopefully when they develop the rest of the I guess that's my question. If you're emulating the look of the large white barn that stood on the property for decades, it should be the dominant feature over the adjoining property. Or am I missing something?
That emulation and that throwback to the historic nature of the Harris family property is done at the B shops.
So if whatever gets built here, I guess this is, I want to go back and I want consistency in appearance. So aside from the roof line relative to the barn structure, if these buildings were sitting side by side, we would say, aside from that, they're identical. From appearance, material, finish, gable, all of that stuff. I'm just trying to get, we have an intent to make it the same, but the question is it going to be the same except for the barn structure? That's the question I've got.
And I can answer that question. It's a definitive yes, that those buildings will be identical to each other than their roof line.
All right. Okay, and then relative to the signs, we've noted where the switching of the signs is gonna be. So now you're replacing a tenant sign with the, monument sign. Are you gonna move that other tenant sign someplace else, or are you just not gonna have that one? So you're gonna be one short of what's allowed under the commitments?
It would be in lieu of.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments, questions?
Did we get the question from the chat?
Roger, did we get a question from the chat? From Mr.
Culpepper was able to relay his question through a neighbor. Jared and Mary Lehman are the neighbors of Mr. Culpepper. And he asked to share his question. He'd like to know the distance from his entrance to the entrance that has been mentioned. For safety, if nothing else, it should be further distance based on the drawings. Now learning a liquor store will be right there as well. Mr. Culpepper has a concern of property values. His address is 3290 South US Highway 421.
So he's across Michigan Road, I mean.
He would be located on the west side of Michigan. Yes.
Right. And then, so if I'm looking at the one map, which is, it's exhibit 4 on the strong box, which has the, it's basically, the top is heading west. So do you know if his entrance is the one south or the one just north of the entrance by Outlot H? Do you know which one he lives at? Matt, do you know?
I do not know.
I believe it is the driveway north.
Okay.
And Greg, if I could call on Greg Snelling, if he knows, if he could give us an approximate distance. I've been out there several times, but I don't know that distance offhand.
I only see the one driveway on the west side of Michigan Road.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at an aerial photo.
Yeah.
That goes along the frontage of the property.
Correct.
This is Greg Snelling, if you can hear me.
Yes. Get your address, please.
My address is 13295 Illinois Street, Suite 142, Carmel, Indiana.
Okay, thanks.
The approximate distance from Mr. Culpepper's driveway and the center line of the Appaloosa Drive, I believe it is. I'm sorry, Hanoverian Street, which is the entrance we're talking about north of the future liquor store. That is approximately 160 feet. And it's been approved by NDOT. Incidentally, the plans for the improvements on Michigan Road have been reviewed and permitted by NDOT, and construction, I believe, is ongoing.
Is there going to be a divider? Is there going to be a divider on Michigan there or not? Or is that just going to be, will it end up being 4 lanes?
It is 4 lanes for the majority of the property frontage. NDOT, I believe, has a plan to make it 5 lanes, but the current plan that we've designed to their specifications has no median except at the right-in, right-out entrance. The next one to the north is a right-in, right-out, and we have a center curb, which is a barrier.
Right. Okay.
And that's only about 100 feet long, so the majority of it is not. There's no physical barrier in the middle, no median.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have Anything else? Comments, questions? All right. Since there isn't any, I guess we'll move on to motions. On 43 DP, would anybody like to make a motion on that one?
Can't find it.
And before we make a motion, let me ask a question on this. Can we, whatever motion we make, can we put language in there subject to the planning department being satisfied as to the consistency of the buildings with the exception of the roof line? You know, for the materials and look to, you know, address the issue that the detail that we've got in these materials is not as detailed as the other materials that were previously approved.
I think you can, since there are waivers requested, I think that you could express that intent that that whatever is submitted permitting is consistent with Mr. Green's representations, that they'll be the same. I think you can do that.
With the exception of the roof line.
Correct. Well, correct. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Mr. Franz, I know you called for motions, but you have a hand raised, Mary Beck.
Contact was killing me.
Okay. Roger, let's go ahead. Let her talk.
My name is Mary Beck. My address is 3415 South US Highway 421, Zionsville. We live adjacent to the Appaloosa Crossing site. We were concerned when we heard in the earlier comments about the water feature now just being an additional retention pond. And we are also concerned about the safety and the additional traffic that will be going on and the widening of the road, where it widens just at the Appaloosa Crossing portion of it and then narrows when it comes down to our property.
All right.
And also the liquor store, you know, concerned about that as well. And the property value.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nat, do you want to comment on those?
Yes, the Plan Commission may recall that earlier this year, 2020 has been a long year.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, we received approval to relocate a water feature further south along 421. So it's actually the south, a little over an acre parcel that provides additional buffering from the properties to the south. That was actually a land acquisition that was added to the project back in the winter and spring last year. And so we think that actually is a positive feature of the development and creates additional buffering and separation from the project moving south to north. So we think that's positive. Certainly, we are making the transportation improvements that adjoin our property. That's the requirements under the ordinance. And those access points, as Mr. Snelling mentioned earlier, were approved through NDOT, and that work is commencing now in accordance with their specifications.
All right, thanks. All right, I guess I'll go back to the motions. Would anyone like to make a motion on 2020-43-DP? We have to address both of the waivers as individual items and then the motion for approval or disapproval, whatever the motion may be relative to the development plan itself.
Like you said, I'm struggling with both of them, with just kind of the open-endedness of what's transcribing or going on. But Matt, a quick question. So, we've talked about the other B stores up there, and then we've got the gas station going in there at the corner of 146 and 421. So they'll have, in addition to the other signage, their own requests. Like I said, my concern is we're approving a signage plan that keeps kind of shifting. I'd feel more comfortable with a completed plan. And that's why I keep poking around at the idea of getting a continuance so some of this stuff can actually get sorted out.
With regard to the signage plan, if the commission would desire to continue that, we can continue that and come back and I can show the change that we've discussed here this evening. With regard to the development plan, I believe that we are agreeable entirely with making the condition that Mr. Franz explored, and believe that the architectural submittal that we made and was reviewed by staff and vetted through our TAC process is consistent with what was previously approved for the shops, and would like to move forward with that component of the project. But we are agreeable to continuing the sign plan and can come back with further refinements to it.
Sounds better.
All right, so would somebody
All right, I'll make a motion.
Okay, all right. How about taking the continuance first?
We want a motion to continue the signage plan.
Yeah, 2020-44 DP.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we continue 2020-44 DP, the signage plan, to the next plan commission meeting.
Which is,
Second.
What's the date? December what? 21st. Yeah, okay, 21st.
December 21st.
All right, and we have a second. Do we need a roll on this, Dan, or can we do this by?
I'd prefer we do a roll call just because it's possible to know.
All right, okay, so Wayne, would you please take a roll?
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Ms. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Papa,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
All right, so that takes care of that one. So now back to 2020-43 DP. And the motions required for that one.
Okay, I move that the waiver of architectural building design requirements as discussed and committed to in the discussion in the meeting be approved as discussed. And I also move that the waiver of building materials be approved as discussed and committed to in the discussion at the meeting. I move that docket 2020
All right, so
-DP to allow for development plan approval of a 10,800 plus or minus square foot multi-tenant building in Outlot J within the Appaloosa Crossing Development Zone Rural Professional Business PB pending and within the Michigan Road overlay be conditionally approved based on the findings in the staff report and subject to the rezoning of the PB classification and associated variance process. Staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, and subject to the resolution of outstanding review items identified in the town engineer in Exhibit 5 of the staff report as presented. I think I got it all.
all right. So we have three motions. I'm going to deal with each one separately. So Dan, where should we put the language in there? Subject to architectural drawings presented, or final architectural drawings are consistent with what has previously been approved in whatever that docket number in April was. Where would we put that? Would that be in the approval of the full development plan, or would it be in one of the waivers?
It's probably whatever your staff would like to see. I'd like it in the waiver and the motion.
Okay,
And I think that the way you articulate it would be that all materials and architectural design would be reviewed administratively and would need to be satisfactory to your staff. That's the way I heard it. So
okay,
if Lewis added that to the three motions he made, then I would make me feel comfortable, because then I think staff knows how to administer it.
all right. So, Mr. Lewis, do you accept those recommendations?
Yes.
All right, so with that, is there a second on the waiver for architectural building design requirements?
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Yes. Ms. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Nay.
Mr. Papa,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Josh, you're muted.
Aye. Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-1, so that waiver is granted, subject to, as stated. On the second motion, is there a second for the waiver of building materials?
Second.
Any further discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Yes. Mr. Jones,
Nay.
Mr. Papa,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 6-1, so that waiver is granted. And then on the approval of the development plan, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a second. Any further discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Mr. Papa,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Nay.
Mr. Papa. Oh,
Aye.
there we go. Thank you.
So that motion also carries or passes 6-1. So you have those subject to the conditions, and we will see you next month for the signage plan. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right. Next item on the docket.
Hotel Tango.
Yep, 2020-45 DPA Hotel Tango, 10615 Zionsville Road, petition for development plan amendment approval to allow for modification of the pergola and for the addition of up to 210 square foot of screened outdoor storage with the waiver request of architectural design requirements in the B2 Urban General Business Zoning District. Is the petitioner present?
Yes.
All right, please proceed. State your name and address, please.
Joseph Lisi with Progress Studio. Our address is 5915 North College Avenue, Suite 213, Indianapolis, Indiana.
All right, thank you. Please proceed.
So we are filing an amendment to our original approved set of plans, which show a revised canopy design to reflect what has been constructed on site, as well as requesting approval for a future walk-in cooler that would be added to the outside of the structure, which would be screened to match the building's architecture and style. On specifically to quickly see what this would look like on page A102 of our design documents, the original structure was proposed to be a smart pergola, and that proved to be an expensive venture. So we are here today to catch up what was constructed in the field with the design. The actual covered seating area has not changed in square footage or area, so that has remained the same. You will see also that we have shifted away the outdoor wood burning fireplace structure from the wood canopy itself to give a little bit more clearance. Before it was non-combustible structure, it was metal and steel, and this is now a wood structure with a metal roof. So we've pulled that back away from the canopy structure. And then on the right side of the plan, you can see a cross-hatched area that shows an extent of concrete, which will be utilized for a future outdoor cooler. The outdoor cooler will be screened with vertical butt jointed fencing to match the rustic feel of the property itself. After some staff comments, we originally were asking for 210 square feet of outdoor cooler area, and we've reduced that to 180 square feet after pulling back the west face of the proposed cooler to make the clean outs more accessible to anyone servicing from the outside, not inside the building. As such, we've also shifted the east accessible route from what it was originally to ensure that the egress from the backside of the building could access the parking lot. On the next page on A401, we've included updated renderings to reflect the new design, basically what you would see today if you drove by the building. And then also on the upper left corner, you can see what we're proposing as far as the appearance of that screened walkout cooler. So the cooler itself will be completely encapsulated by the screening, so you won't see the refrigerator panels, if you will. So that's a quick rundown. I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have.
All right, at this point, is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this matter?
Mr. Franz, at this time, there are no hands raised.
All right, thank you. At this point, I'll open it up to questions from the members of the plan committee, or no, staff report first, Wayne. Sorry about that.
Certainly, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been amended this evening. Certainly, this matter, as described by petitioner, came up due to field changes related to a deviation from the original proposal, hence the conversation this evening. Staff concentrates its thoughts on if the Plan Commission had not seen the smart pergola, would you have supported this petition, or would have staff supported the petition as it's been filed? The answer is yes. This is a feature that does fit the motif, the plan of the rustic imagery, if you will. Certainly this shed roof is reminiscent of that thought process. And certainly staff is supportive of planning ahead related to the outdoor storage, specifically for the walk-in cooler. Again, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been presented this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point in time, I'll open it up to members of the plan commission.
I actually thought the idea of a roof rather than a pergola fit right in these COVID-19 days where you have more outdoor seating. I kind of thought that might have been one of the things driving it. It makes sense.
Yes, I think that's a great point.
I guess I agree with that, but is that typical of changes would be made and then come back and ask after the fact?
I think that's one of the little things I guess I'm a little bit disappointed in too. It's, kind of asking forgiveness for after the fact.
As a developer and building owner and contractor, on occasion, I might have deviated from things that I once got approved and then figured out how much it really cost and came back and made a change. So I can appreciate they actually came back and asked. And I don't think it really has any material. It's not a material change to the building. It's something we try not to have happen, but it happened.
Was the original to have any sort of awning that would roll out underneath the pergola for rain, or was it just always going to be open if it rained? It just wasn't going to be seated?
The original design included clear vinyl or plastic windows, if you will, panels that are made by awning companies. It's just a aluminum frame. It's collapsible. Those were originally proposed. However, with this design, it would be impractical for that. So it is primarily just going to be this open air structure that you see.
No, now I was thinking of on the pergola structure open, because that's open air. Was there going to be like an awning that would pull out from that to protect from the weather? I'm just curious. I can't remember if that was discussed, or if it's raining, is it just not going to be seated then?
Oh, you're talking about like wind-driven rain for anybody that's seated outside.
Was the original structure open, or am I missing something?
It is open, yes.
All right. No, I'm talking. Well, I seem to recall this. I don't have those documents with me. Well, whatever. I mean, it's fine.
The original one had provisions for putting up clear panels to enclose the smart pergola. It also had provisions for egress because we would be creating a room in that instance. This design basically takes away those doors and enclosure and just is a open air canopy.
All right. All right. Is there any further questions, comments?
On your screening for your outdoor cooling, is that screening going to be high enough to cover your rooftop coolant on top of that unit, or is it going to be something that's going to be exposed from, I mean, it's just gonna go wall height, there's just gonna cover that mechanical for it as well.
What we've done in the past is we have the decorative portions up to the top of the cooler panels, and then determined whatever ends up being the condensing unit on top would be screened with metal, brake metal, to finish off the look, so you don't have that exposed mechanical look, but keeps the height of the overall structure only to the cooler panel, so it's stepped back a little bit, so it's a little bit from a massing standpoint, a little bit more subdued than it would be otherwise.
So the photo I'm looking at right now would have on top of it some boxed off unit for the air conditioning. Is that, or for the cooling mechanical? Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
Okay.
And if you'd like to add any context to that as part of any approval, what we're seeking tonight is just approval for a future cooler. Hotel Tango is not sure exactly when they will have the need, but they have foreseen the need based on basically the excitement building around their arrival. And so what we may want to offer up perhaps is some kind of language where it would have to go through permitting anyway, the future cooler that is, and to have a stipulation that any of the condensing units would be screened fully from view.
All right.
All right, is there any further questions? If there are none, is there a motion?
Can do that. Move the docket number 2020-45-DPA. Development plan amendment approval to allow for modification of the pergola for the addition of up to 180 square feet of screened outdoor storage associated with the placement of a cooler in the future. With the waiver request of architectural design requirements in the B2 Urban General Business Zoning District be approved based on the findings, staff report, staff recommendation, and submitted findings of fact.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Certainly. Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Papa.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 7-0. You have your amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
All right. That's it for the docketed items. Wayne, I believe you wanted to discuss something.
Yeah, just ever so briefly, just this is that time of year where we're into housekeeping for the next year. And so we're focused on the 2021 filing schedule. I do not believe we have a draft copy of that in your packet. I know with the Board of Zoning Appeals, we're looking to extend the filing deadline a few extra days. We've made an adjustment previously to their meeting date, but did not adjust the filing schedule. So we're looking to clean that up. I'll look for Roger to jump in if there's anything specific we need to share on the schedule itself, such as a change to sort of that 30-day cycle.
The challenge that staff was being faced with was quite often a filing deadline was falling, if not on the same day, definitely within the same week as when staff reports were being required to be generated and get out to you. And that created quite a bit of overlap of duties. What we're requesting is to back the filing deadline up a few days, where we give staff a little bit more lead time to intake new projects, give a couple of extra days for review before we actually get together for TAC review. This would also allow a couple extra days for the petitioners to be able to respond to staff's comments following TAC. So the time frame, which has typically been about 35 days, will be now closer to 43 to 44 days.
And so with all that in mind, if there's any amendments to rules of procedure, our own ordinance, pieces like that, we'll be looking at those pieces of the puzzle to bring those all up and we have that conversation. But certainly thank you, Roger, for that detail and certainly bringing this to your attention, but we'll be bringing this to the leadership mayor's office, her attention here soon. But this is just a conversation we're working through. Again, just for tonight, it's just for your an update for you. Another item very quickly is the Board of Zoning Appeals in their last session approved a project. It's a residential garage in Ralston. The property was zoned commercially though. Part of your zoning ordinance mandates the development plan filing of that garage. And so that would be a petition that would be heard by the Plan Commission on top of the variance that the petitioner had gone through. However, they did secure a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals to allow the project to deviate from that standard. So given that it was a residential garage, it's going to just move through permitting and then let staff sign off on the development plan. Maybe not for a conversation for tonight, but certainly want to bring that to your attention. This was a deviation from what you typically see. But again, this was a garage on a residential use on a commercial property. The zoning ordinance mandated that it would have come to the Plan Commission except for the variance that the Board of Zoning Appeals granted. Streamlines the process, enhances the experience, all good things. But again, not for discussion necessarily tonight, but wanted to maybe have a future conversation on that, how that process could work. Also, two very quick just plugs, if you will. The airport, the Zionsville Hamilton County Airport Authority joint meeting related to the land use study is 6 p.m. on Zoom this Thursday. Again, 6 p.m. The project's been listed and noticed. And also out there for conversation is the RFP specific to our wastewater treatment plant, looking to study capacity and just learn more about the nuances. It's been a number of years since the plant was previously studied. So just an idea to put this on your radar for now. Responses come in the 26th. We'll look to see who the respondents are, but certainly we'll be looking to see what projects file in the meantime for projects that are on your wastewater treatment plant system, as the town is also studying the capacity of its own plant. So just some food for thought for another day. Those are some quick items for update. Happy to take any questions if anybody has any on those topics, and certainly appreciate your time.
All right, so on the filing schedule, so we recently had, I guess it was a while ago, we recently had a request to extend the number of days. How many days would we be adding to it?
The typical filing schedule, we would be adding anywhere from 8 to 10 days.
Okay.
Eight calendar days.
I guess my question would be, how does that line up with other planning jurisdictions in the area?
That's an excellent question. Having worked with a number of different jurisdictions here in central Indiana, most jurisdictions for development plan approvals are right around the 45-day time frame. So we would be right competitive with them.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything else. Is there any other questions, comments?
Wayne or Roger, do we have maybe I missed it. Do we have the meeting dates for 2021 for Plan Commission and BZA, or?
It's the third Monday of each month, except for January and February because of federal holidays, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Wayne?
Correct. Your own rules of procedure would call out your meeting dates. The town has, it has the obligation to publish that whole schedule prior to December 31st for all bodies of the town to enjoy having those meetings all declared prior to the end of the year. Certainly, there's no mandate that we do that, but it's certainly a convenience for constituents and others to have that posted. But yes, rules of procedure for Plan Commission is the third Monday of the month, except as mentioned, because of holidays.
And BZA is staying on Monday?
The first Wednesday of the month.
No, BZA.
Oh, BZA, yes. BZA falls on the first Wednesday of the month.
Monday? It's not the first Monday?
Roger, you're on mute.
The BZA is meeting on the first Wednesday of every month.
Oh, you're right, right. So this is Monday, right. You get confused being on both, sorry. Trying to avoid a conflict.
Very good.
Okay, anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn then?
So moved.
Second? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody.
All right.
Yeah. Nice.
Bye.